It struck me when I started in the department that obviously there were a couple of key strategies that we had on the books, and it took a couple of months because we were mid-COVID. I became quite aware after a period of time that it wasn't just a document, the strategy, the overall 5-year strategy, that there was actually a process associated with it as well. And so that was very encouraging for me, because I would be very much coming from the position that there's an awful lot of strategies on shelves in various government departments that don't, maybe they're picked selectively, bits out of them are picked selectively, but there's no concurrent process that goes along with the strategy throughout the lifetime of the strategy. That's not the case with our 5-year Community Voluntary Sector strategy, and I think today is evidence of that again. And I think the ongoing work on implementation of the strategy has copper-fastened the welcome and renewed relationship and partnership between government and the community and voluntary sector. The relationship which many of the people in this room helped to develop and nurture during the course of the preparation of the strategy now underpins the increasingly collective approach to deal with crises such as COVID-19 and the Ukraine response, in addition to other complex social issues. And one of the key achievements of the strategy has been the agreement of a set of shared values and principles. It is a very significant day. I did ask, by the way, for the detail of other government departments' responses to it, and it was heartening. There was a warm welcome to it from other government departments as well. I can assure you that. So there's potential here to push this further, I suppose, is the point that I make. It's not just a nice document that we can walk away from. There's a process ongoing here, and there's a lot of other departments who are willing to be part of that process, and have been part of the process, I should say, as well, many of them here this morning as well. And the agreement of an early version of what we are launching here today in the very first days of the strategy development work formed the basis for and solid foundation of all that came after: collaboration and partnership in particular, and working in the pursuit of best outcomes for all. These values and principles have now been agreed by government and warmly received across all departments, I can confirm. These values and principles will foster a culture of mutual respect and understanding as government works with the community and voluntary sector to face challenges. And today, I think, really is an event about spreading the word. Beyond the room here, beyond the individual officials who were involved in the strategy and also in this document today, across the public sector and across the community and voluntary sector as well. I think a lot of people in the community and voluntary sector don't know that government has bought into this. We have a job to get that word out. Today's part of that. So today is sort of a launching pad, really, I suppose, to push this further. I know there are some central and local government officials, as well as representatives from various public bodies in the audience today, and many of you, like those in my department, have already begun to adopt these values and principles in your engagement with the sector. I know you will continue to embed them across your organisations and ensure their intent is realised, remembering them in particular when it comes to working together to face challenges. For our part, my department will champion and promote these values and principles, as well as ensuring they remain at the heart of all we do. As a department, we recognise the huge potential when we work in collaboration with the sector to effect positive social change, to reach into communities that we couldn't do on our own, and to support individuals to engage directly with the state. As one example of these values and principles being put into practice, they will underpin the Civic Forum event, which will be held this year for the first time, where government and community and voluntary sector will come together to discuss how we can work better together. And you'll hear me talking more about this document at that event as well. We need to keep bringing it up and bringing it up and bringing it up, and refreshing and reminding and pushing it. So we'll be doing that again next month at the Civic Forum, and the Taoiseach will be doing likewise as well. Glad to confirm that he'll be at that event too. And while I feel it's important that the values and principles agreed are seen as a whole, I do want to single out one value and one principle that I feel are particularly important for us working in government departments to take heed of if we are to grow our understanding of the sector and further develop our relationships. And I'll read them out. The first value is one of active participation. And I'll quote, a commitment to active participation of all stakeholders, including citizens and non-citizens. Participation is rooted in the belief that communities have the right to identify their own needs and interests and outcomes required to meet them. Building active participation involves recognition that policies and programmes targeted at communities and groups will not and cannot be effective without the meaningful participation of those communities in their design, implementation and monitoring. That speaks for itself. I think it's an important one, that's why I pulled it out today. We do have a pilot programme to address this issue. It was that, I think it's been mentioned a couple of times. I've mentioned lip service, someone else mentioned box ticking. It happens. It happens at national level, it happens at local level. We have a pilot programme under the Dormant Accounts Fund in 4 different local authorities where the LCDCs are working with marginalised groups to see how they can better see themselves in the local economic and community plans as well, because far too often, particularly marginalised groups, they don't see themselves in these big generic documents that are not done in an active participation way sometimes, not always, but there's improvement there to be done, I think. I also want to pull out the principle of subsidiarity, and I've mentioned it too, and I'll read it. Recognise and facilitate the ability of communities, whether communities of interest or geographic communities, to influence and, where possible, take decisions and actions, promoting power sharing and the exercise of power as close to communities as possible. Again, it speaks for itself. It's one I'm particularly interested in pushing as well. We've started the ball rolling a bit more on that with the pilot community development programmes. We hope to grow that a little bit next year. Also the Empowering Communities programme as well, where we're saying to the local communities, you craft, you design, you plot the course ahead because you know best. And that's difficult. That's difficult for government to do at national and local level. For various understandable reasons as well that we can be honest about when we talk about it too, I think. And ultimately, the success of this document will only be seen if we keep pulling it out and we keep using it. And each of us have a role to play in ensuring that comes to pass. I thank my colleagues and officials who have already adopted these values and principles and look forward to their continued implementation across departments and agencies. And I want to acknowledge the dedication of the sector to this work as well. The spirit of open engagement, constructive challenging and big picture thinking, while also ensuring those vital incremental steps are being progressed, mean real changes and real improvements are happening. And it's that principle of respect that allows us to be honest with each other as well. It's really important that we're honest with each other and that the sector feels comfortable and safe to shoot straight. Otherwise we're only caught ourselves. And that's a really practical reason why these principles are really important. We did have a discussion internally about how do we make sure it just doesn't float off into the ether. It's a nice document. We've got agreement across government departments, across the sector. Interestingly, again, I'm going to keep referring to your speech, but I think it warrants maybe annual revisiting, where we go to government departments and ask them give us a case study of where you implemented respect, where you implemented social inclusion, where you implemented collaboration, subsidiarity. We haven't nailed that down yet, but I think there is a danger it will float off into the ether unless we have a locked in mechanism to actually refresh every year. And we can't just depend on that mechanism alone. We have to keep bringing it out and bringing it up and calling government to account as well as to whether we're using it or not. I'm just checking here now. Is there anything else that I want to say that I need to say? Yeah, look, today is a milestone, and I would emphasise milestone. It's an ongoing journey as well between the state and the community and voluntary sector, and I'm pleased to now officially launch the values and principles for collaboration and partnership working with the community and voluntary sector at a local and national level.